Hey everybody, how you doing? My name is Reverend Phoenix Coffin-Williams, and I am coming to you through the Blue Door Corridor, and I am opening up this year's observance of Intimate Partner Violence Awareness Month, and I am kicking off the Blue Doors Awareness and Summit right now. So as I said, my name is Reverend Phoenix Coffin-Williams, and this is the Blue Door. And we're gathering here today to continue our acknowledgement and discussion of intimate partner violence and how Aquarian age clergy can utilize our skills and our talents and resources to end this form of gender-based violence. The Blue Door is a Magickal pastoral counseling training program and counseling center that specializes in training Magickal clergy in understanding the social, emotional, mental, and economic and institutional impact of psychospiritual illness and providing them with evidence-based and faith-affirming practices and techniques for healing and instilling wellness. One of the foundational principles of the Blue Door is that everyone is empowered to be a healer, and everyone is capable of meeting with others in suffering to do this work. Since this is the case, the cost of this education should be affordable and also faith-affirming. The Blue Door is also dedicated to social justice and advocacy, which means that the educational material and the events supported by the Blue Door are pluralistic in nature and seek to illuminate and provide voice to those who are disenfranchised and othered by dominant society. This year, I am extremely blessed to have a returning group of presenters, all of them women of color, who are willing to share their perspectives, their work, and their visions for a world void of intimate partner violence. I pray you find this year's summit enlightening, and at its conclusion, you feel empowered to affect the world with helpful and lasting and peaceful change. All right, so we got one person joining.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining.
You're welcome. Oh, your hair looks.
All right. Move back to speaker. So I'm just going to go ahead and move right into my presentation for this event. My presentation is literally on deconstructing and recognizing toxic men. So I'm going to go ahead and share this presentation with y'all real quick. All right, so here we are. Hopefully you can still see me and hear me and all that jazz. Let's see. Let's go on back into the meeting real quick. All right, so can you see my presentation right here when I go into slideshow mode? Can you see the whole deconstructing toxic men?
Yes, yep. Mm-hmm.
All right, excellent. Go ahead and mute your microphone again. I'm gonna go ahead and get started.
All right, hold on, let me see. How do I do this?
I'll help you.
Start. I'll mute. I see it in the corner here. Okay.
There you go. All right, so deconstructing toxic men. So I do want to start off by saying to anyone who might be listening, pay attention, because very rarely do you get profiles for or examples of what to look for or what to recognize when you're looking into someone who is toxic. The thing to note about profiling people and the thing to note about the way that we're going to scrutinize this topic is that the things that we are talking about, they have a context. And so when you see these things, sometimes you recognize yourself in them and you start to wonder, wow, am I toxic? And the answer might be yes. But the truth of the matter is that without context, without knowing why the behaviors that we're going to discuss are happening, it's not really appropriate to label them as toxic or bad or problematic. We approach them with compassion until we understand, what these behaviors are for. So the behaviors that I'm going to list, the toxic behaviors, they are toxic because they are used to manipulate, they're used to violate, they're used to gain power and control over another individual, usually a woman in this case. Because the context right now is specifically gender-based violence, intimate partner violence against women. However, these do also apply to queer LGBTQ relationships and non-heteronormative relationships. But the purpose of this conference is violence against women. These behaviors, they arrive in a context. And so when the context is to manipulate, dominate, take power and control without consent, they're quite toxic. And so what we're going to be learning today is we're going to talk about toxicity in terms of dimensions, and I'll be illuminating what the dimensions of toxicity are. I'll review 10 toxicity profiles very briefly, and I'll go into a deeper exploration of the socio-psychopath profile and more depth. And I'll talk about some speech patterns, vocal cues, body language, facial expressions, and an overall kind of profile of the socio-psychopath. And the reason why I'm going into detail about that one is that that character profile, that personality trait is very dangerous. It comes with a lot of violence. It comes with threats to your safety. It comes with threats to the safety of your family and friends and the things that you care about. So that's the one that's going to be on high alert. And if anyone wants to learn about the other 10 ones in more depth, you can book a consultation. We can provide some education about the other profiles. And then after we go through the exploration of the profiles, we'll talk about some of the things that can be helpful as far as like what to do with dealing with toxic men, how you want to conserve your energy, how you want to manage yourself or fortify yourself. And then finally, we'll get to a place where we talk about whether you want to decide to stay engaged in a relationship with a man who's toxic, if you want to work on it, or if you want to bounce deuces. If there are any questions, you can feel free to ask me at the end of the presentation. I'll be sure to be like, hey, any questions? And you can ask them then. So as a concept, when it comes to understanding toxicity, take a think about what happens when any toxic agent, this doesn't have to be a person, this could be a substance, but when any toxic agent enters an environment, how does the environment react? And when a toxic agent is present, what does the environment do to achieve a sense of balance? So when building this concept, when a toxic agent enters an environment, the environment immediately starts to suffer. The degree of suffering can, it can have levels to it, right? Like it doesn't have to always be excruciating suffering. It doesn't have to always be rock bottom suffering. But when a toxic agent enters an environment, the environment starts to sour. It starts to feel not normal, not usual. And the environment will react by trying to maintain a sense of balance. But a lot of times what we will notice is that what the environment does to attain balance when a toxic agent is present is also kind of toxic. So if you consider yourself in a relationship with someone who's in a toxic agent, you can start to recognize that your environment doesn't feel as great as it used to. You don't have access to the joy or the, wellness that you used to have access to. The things that used to fortify you and make you feel good don't feel all that great anymore. Your character and your behavior in an attempt to attain balance or achieve balance will start to behave in toxic ways as well. To reconnect with a sense of power, reconnect with a sense of agency in said relationship. And so consider, if your life is great and someone enters it and it's not so great, that person might be toxic. Or the way that your personalities or characteristics interact with each other produces a toxic interaction. When it comes to understanding or thinking about toxicity, there are some dimensions that we got to think about or know about. And so these dimensions are sadistic behavior, manipulative behavior, dishonest behavior, selfish behavior, non-communicative behavior, critical and judgmental behavior, angry behavior, embarrassing and shaming behavior, controlling behavior, and jealous behavior. Those are toxic. You might not have needed me to tell you that those were toxic. However, seeing them out in front of you like that, think about some of the things that you've experienced in some of your relationships with men. When it comes to these dimensions, sadistic behavior, we can assess for it. Does he say mean or cruel things followed by the words, "I'm only kidding"? Does he laugh at you when something bad happens or you're upset? Does he make sarcastic comments? Does he seem to enjoy saying things to embarrass you or upset you? Does he make jokes at your expense? Does he seem to enjoy belittling you or putting you down? Manipulative behavior. Does he turn things around verbally, making things your fault? Does he withhold affection or sex if you don't do what he wants or as a form of punishment? Does he have financial troubles, often taking money from you or asking you for money? Does he insist you did or said something you have never did or said, implying that there's something wrong with your memory when there isn't? So it's gaslighting. Dishonest behavior. Have you caught him in lies? Does he double back or contradict himself in the same sentence? Does he often stretch the truth? Does he withhold or gloss over important information? Does he have questionable business practices that could impact you? Has he cheated on you more than once? Selfish behavior. Does he rarely go out of his way for you except when it is convenient for him? Does he rarely treat you as a priority, but rather as an afterthought? Is he absent, and when he shows back up, is he full of excuses, not being there when you need him? Does he constantly talk about himself, not giving your issues much attention? And does his needs seem to always come first? Non-communicative behavior. Does he often give you the silent treatment when he's upset? Is getting him to open up like pulling teeth? Is he distant, cold, aloof, or lacking emotion so that it's difficult to know his feelings? Is he evasive about his business or what he does? Does he ignore your requests for information? Critical and judgmental behavior. Does he put down friends and or family members? Does he constantly criticize your looks, age, weight, or behavior? Does he always tell you what you are doing wrong? Does he cut down his ex or speak ill of women in his life? Does he negate or contradict much of what you say? Does he relish cutting people down? Does he always doubt everybody around him? Angry behavior. Does he have unresolved issues with his mother or female relatives? Is he cruel or mean-spirited? Does he have a chip on his shoulder, always angry at someone for something? Does he often speak in tones sounding like he is annoyed by you? Does he often talk down to you? Does he yell at you or curse at you? Does he yell, or is he condescending to service people and subordinates? Does he make unfounded accusations? Does his temper suddenly explode for little or no reason? Does he keep everything in, suddenly exploding in a torrent of anger at you when he's upset at you? Does he ever shove his fist through the wall or break things when he's upset? Does he give you physical jabs or slaps saying they're only love taps? Embarrassing or shaming behavior. Does he cut you down or tell you what you are doing wrong in front of other people? Does he shout or yell at you in public? Does he share your personal issues with friends, family, or strangers? Is he so loud, boisterous, or obnoxious he often embarrasses you? Does he try to intimidate you with his knowledge, position, or money? Does he call you dumb or stupid? Does he speak to strangers more politely than he speaks to you? Is he overly charming to others while taking you for granted? Are you embarrassed by his drinking or drugging behavior? Does he have uncontrollable temper or outbursts? Controlling behavior. Does he try to keep you away from friends or family members? Does he always seem to tell you what to do, say, or how to dress or act? Does he demand sex from you when you aren't into it? Does he make you do things you don't feel comfortable doing? Does everything always have to be his way? Does he get involved in your business when he's not welcome to do so? Does he try to convert you to his fanatical way of thinking? Is he stingy with money or affection? Does he lecture or talk to you, paying little attention to your responses? Jealous behavior. Is he competitive, trying to top you with one-upmanship? Does he purposely flaunt other women at you? Is he intimidated by your profession, or does he belittle your job? Is he wrong in his accusations about you? So those battery of questions, all of that, the dimensions of toxicity, they come from a questionnaire. I want to say it's called the hair, what is it called? Man, thought I had it. Yeah, so the hair psychopathology checklist. So these questions come from that and research related to what do these people have in common? controlling, manipulative, toxic people. They have, these things in common: sadistic behavior, manipulative behavior, dishonest behavior, selfish behavior, so on down the line. And the questions that I just asked, these are things that they all have in common, no matter what their profile is. And so one of the things that you want to consider if you are discussing or thinking about whether or not your partner or a person that you're engaging with is toxic, is some emotional changes that happen when they're around. These take hold in your body. Do you feel afraid or fearful? Are you having self-doubt? Physical changes, eating less, sleeping inconsistently. You have feelings of guilt and shame that are unreasonable and not about things that you've actually done. You're not really feeling like your old self. There is a negative emotion questionnaire that has 10 questions that can be asked if you want to assess if something is going on, if you are around a toxic man. Take a particular man in your life, any man, for a test, or if you want to, bring him to mind. And what are the answers to the following questions? Does he make you feel angry at him? Does he make you feel sad when you think of him? Do you feel contempt for him? Does he disgust or repulse you? Are you usually embarrassed around him? Does he make you feel guilty? Does he make you feel ashamed? Does he seem to instigate feelings of jealousy in you? Do you feel hopeless when you're around him? Do you feel fear, or are you afraid when you're around him? Answering yes to any of those questions means there's a pretty decent chance that the man in your life has some toxic qualities. And for real, men have toxic qualities. It's a thing. Socially, it's bred into men. It's reinforced with the behaviors that bring us success and happiness and wealth. You'd be very hard pressed to find a man, any man at all, who has no toxic traits. So it's really important and okay for you to be real about what you're noticing. Because while you might be noticing some toxic traits in the dude that you brought to mind, bringing them up to him, that will show you the nature of his toxicity. Does he try to work it out with you? Does he take your feelings seriously? Does he actively address your concerns about toxicity and actively make plans for changing the things that hurt you because you're important to him? If that's the case, then perhaps the man you are thinking about is not as toxic as they come. He might have a little grace in him. So the 11 types of toxic men. So from the work of Lillian Glass and her book titled Toxic Men, 10 Ways to Identify, Deal with, and Heal from the Men Who Make Your Life Miserable, Dr. Glass came up with 10 profile and indicators for recognizing various types of toxic men, specifically 11. Jealous competitor, the sneaky, passive-aggressive, silent but deadly erupting volcano, the arrogant, self-righteous know-it-all, the seductive, manipulating, cheating liar, the angry, bullying, control freak, the instigating, backstabbing meddler, the self-destructive, gloom and doom victim, the wishy-washy, spineless wimp, the selfish me, myself, and I narcissist, the emotional refrigerator, and the socio-psychopath. 11 types of toxic men. There's several billions of people on this planet. I can't remember if it's 8 billion or 13 billion at this point, but wherever we're at, billions of people on this planet, 11 types of toxic men. So the chance of running into a toxic man, either at work, at the gym, at the grocery store, in an interpersonal romantic relationship, in an interpersonal platonic relationship, at healthcare, excuse me, in any and all of these places, there's the risk for running into a toxic man. And unfortunately, toxic men are not just dangerous to women, they are dangerous to everybody, which is why it's important for men to be aware of toxic men as well, and to be aware of toxic traits so that we can all do due diligence to put an end to that treatment. But when it comes to these types, I'm only going to go into a brief little blurb about the first 10, and then I will go into a distinctive discussion about the sociopsychopath. And I'll also go into a distinctive discussion about antisocial personality disorder and how to tell the difference between a sociopath and a psychopath, like one of the ways that we tell clinically. Before we get to that, the jealous competitor. So the jealous competitors try to stop women by arguing with practically everything they say in an attempt to gain the upper hand and show dominance. So they yeah, but, and, you know, kind of go up and above everything that you say and do to try to, you know, look and feel better or more impressive or what have you. The sneaky, passive-aggressive, silent but deadly erupting volcano keeps it all in. He never tells you how he is really feeling. If he is upset or angry, you will never know it, but he keeps a mental scorecard. When the card is full and he has had enough, he will explode in a torrent of anger. It may be over something insignificant like leaving an open soda can on the counter, but his anger is not about the open soda can at all. It is about everything you have ever done that annoyed him since the time you first met. So again, the issue here is that keeping a scorecard and choosing something insignificant to blow up with you about is not a healthy or helpful way to maintain a relationship. Yes, you as a person or a human being might be doing things that lead to annoyance. We all are annoying. We all do things that are a pain in the ass and get on other people's nerves. That is true. However, choosing to not address it when it's happening, saving it specifically for later when someone is unsuspecting, is a toxic trait. The arrogant, self-righteous know-it-all. The arrogant, self-righteous know-it-all thinks he has all the answers. He feels that he is smarter than anyone else, that his views are the only correct ones to have, and that his moral compass is the only one by which everyone should live. And you can't do anything right around them because they will always have a different way of doing it that they will tell you is better. The seductive, manipulative, cheating liar. So a perfect example of the body language, vocal tones, and overall attitude of a seductive, manipulative, cheating liar was Senator John Edwards' dance around his ABC Nightline interview. When asked critical questions about whether he cheated on his cancer-stricken wife or fathered an illegitimate child, his inconsistencies in statements, hemming and hawing and sidestepping of questions, excessive blinking, lip licking, and nose touching were all signals of deception. In the interview, he had the nerve to justify his affair by lamely admitting he only had the affair when his wife Elizabeth was in remission from cancer. This seductive, manipulative, cheating liar fooled a lot of people for a long time until the truth was finally revealed. This type of man is overly complimentary. Even if you initially don't believe him or what he's saying, he constantly feeds your ego, so you want to be around him. He's often overly friendly and engaging when first meeting you, behavior typical of con men. His feel-good banter can change to nasty on a moment's notice if he doesn't get exactly what he wants from you. If you confront him about flirting or cheating, don't be surprised when he flips the accusation back at you, trying to make you think that you're the one with the problem or that you must have been imagining what you saw. The angry, bullying control freak. This toxic terror is all about controlling you by telling you what to do and how to do it. He does it by intimidating you with his anger. And if you don't do what he wants, he will become more angry and more abusive towards you. So this person will also ask you questions early on to figure out what pushes your buttons and gets you into that angry place. And they will sometimes, or a lot of times, test you by doing that just kidding on the things that make you angry to get you to that angry place and just to see how angry you get, how long it takes. And by the time they really, really know you, they can go right forward and keep you in a place of anger and a place of bad decision making for as long as they want. The instigating, backstabbing meddler. The instigating, backstabbing meddler gets into your business as if it were his own and tries to manipulate you and your situation so that he benefits from it or he gets you to do things his way. And so these don't even have to be things that involve him, which is what makes it manipulative and very scary, is an issue with you and your mom, or some relationship with you and your brother, or a doctor, or so on and so forth, all of a sudden becomes a relationship that benefits him. That's sneaky. It's fucking sneaky. The self-destructive gloom and doom victim, he sees the world and life as a glass half empty rather than half full, because he is always looking at the negative and expecting the worst. Negativity permeates his life. If things happen to be going well, he will do whatever he can to sabotage his circumstances. He sees himself as a helpless victim who can do nothing about his situation. He is his own worst enemy, as he often abuses himself with one vice or another. And so being in a relationship with someone who chooses to sabotage themselves over experience success or take control over their situations is a recipe to co-experiencing depression and other kinds of toxic things via maybe folly or do, things that you wouldn't be exposed to if you weren't engaged in that relationship. The wishy-washy, spineless wimp can never make up his own mind about anything and is often swayed by popular opinion. He lives in fear and will never make waves or stick up for himself or others. So this means that you will not be able to know what person you are getting depending on the situation. If your personality is the strongest personality or the popular opinion, maybe this man will agree with you. However, if you talk about the same subject in another situation with a different controlling or dominant popular opinion, he will flip-flop and take that opinion and might even do or say things hurtful to you to kind of maintain a sense of safety ego-wise. The selfish me, myself, and I narcissist is only got concern for themselves. He is the center of his universe and expects you to see him as the center of your universe as well. His only concern for you is in relation to how it affects or applies to him. If you can't do anything and everything for him, you are of no use to him. The emotional refrigerator. He is cold and unemotional and lets very little of himself out. He is a man of few words, so you never know how he is really feeling or thinking. And this means that you actually have to guess and check and try a bunch of things to see if you're making any headway with him. And when he doesn't give you any feedback, you are engaged in this constant cycle of giving and giving and giving, trying to reach him. Meanwhile, he has no intentions or no capacity to give anything to you. So it becomes toxic, it becomes invalidating, and it becomes hurtful. And then the socio-psychopath. This is the one that I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about, but I will read to you the blurb that Dr. Glass has about the socio-psychopath in the book. So the most toxic and dangerous of all men is the socio-psychopath. I call this category socio-psychopath because according to the 4th edition of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the DSM-4, which for this presentation, I included updates from the DSM-5. The definitions are blurred and sociopaths and psychopaths often share common antisocial traits. One of the main differences between the two is that the sociopath tends to be more disorganized, while the psychopath is more methodical, especially in his criminal pursuits. So the socio-psychopath is the most toxic and dangerous of the toxic men profiles. And according to the DSM-5, which I do have here, here we go. According to the DSM-5, antisocial personality disorder is a cluster B personality disorder, and you start to notice the traits from as early as age 15, And then there's also evidence of conduct disorders in childhood. The thing that you have to remember or think about is that the things that happen in antisocial personality disorder, they can't be something that happens during bipolar mania or depression or psychotic decompensation due to auditory or visual hallucinations. So there can be no organic things going on that are making these behaviors happen. So when it comes to antisocial personality disorder, cluster B, when we use a mnemonic device in clinical settings to remember and how to organize personality disorders, cluster B are the bad ones. And it's because folks with cluster B personality disorders or character pathologies quite literally do not give a single fuck about anything. So there are various degrees. So other examples of personality disorders include borderline personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, and then, yeah, of course, antisocial personality disorder. And so in those personality disorders, they don't give a fuck about your feelings. They will say anything. In specifically to antisocial personality disorder, there is a remarkable disregard for any of the rights that you might think you have. People with antisocial personality disorder do not care about how you feel or how you want to feel. They do not care about what you own or what you think you own or what is yours. They do not care about what rights the government grants you or what rights society grants you. They do not care about what personal agency or autonomy they think you have. And when you are dealing with someone who has antisocial personality disorder, the only thing that you are doing when you are engaged in them is mediating what they can get from you and when. So the only thing that's happening is they are taking from you, taking from you, taking from you, and somehow they are manipulating you into believing that you want to be doing all these things because of the charm, because of the way that they get to know you, because of the way they can make it, or the way they can simulate giving you what you want. And so there are a lot of tactics. People with antisocial personality disorder have a history of being harmful or dangerous to animals as children. So these people harm pets and harmless animals. They harm other children who can't defend themselves. People who have antisocial personality disorder go far beyond what you believe to be like classic bullying or the bullying that you would be okay with your child kind of going through or surviving in school to make them tough a little bit. No. The antisocial personality disorder people or the conduct disorder children are the ones who do heavily sadistic things that are not appropriate for their age. So 8-year-olds who cut you is an example. Or children who capture squirrels or bunny rabbits and hold them down and do harmful things to them. Children who are prone to fire starting behaviors that don't go away, that lead into the criminal phase, stealing behaviors. Those are the things that make up conduct disorder, hitting parents, hitting other children in the house. Those are the things that make up the cluster B antisocial personality disorders and the conduct disorder for before age 15. And again, the way to tell the difference between a sociopath and a psychopath, one of the ways is a sociopath is disorganized in their approach to criminality. So if you were talking to someone who's a sociopath and they're talking about how they're going to go about getting their needs met, you're like, wow, that makes absolutely no sense. You're probably going to get everything you ask for, but it's only going to have devastation in its wake. So the Joker is a sociopath. Psychopaths are organized and methodical in their approach to their criminality. So when you talk to them, you're like, A plus B equals C. That is your plan, your rational plan for how you're going to commit crimes and violate the rights of other people. That's one of the ways that you can tell the two apart. If you are interested in learning any more about the other 10 types of toxic men. If you want to go in the depth that I'm going to go into about the sociopsychopath, check out Lillian Glass's book. It's Toxic Men. She does have another book out that's called Toxic People, and it's a less gendered look. However, Toxic Men, again, it does lend to the context of the conversation about violence against women and the role that the patriarchy plays in consistently reinforcing this from the men in our world. So moving forward, more into profiling the sociopsychopath. So if you use the Hare psychopathy checklist to assess for antisocial traits, we go back to that glib superficial charm, grandiose estimation of self-esteem, need for stimulation at all times, pathological lying, cunning and manipulativeness, lack of remorse or guilt for anything that they do, shallow affect, callousness and lack of empathy, parasitic lifestyle, poor behavioral controls, sexual promiscuity, early behavioral problems. So again, that's that conduct disorder before age 15. Lack of realistic long-term goals, impulsivity, irresponsibility, failure to accept responsibility for their own actions, many short-term marital relationships, juvenile delinquency, revocation of conditional release, which means they've also been placed in prison, and then criminal versatility. So these people can rob, they can steal, they can be hitmen or go and beat people up for you. These people will steal a car, sell you cocaine, help you do any, like sell a kidney on the black market. You think of it, if it goes against what we think of as a helpful, healthy, peaceful, prosperous society, they are anti that. So I'm gonna go ahead and just leave this list here for a second and let y'all go ahead and write that down if y'all want to write that down, or go ahead and take a look at these, traits. People who have antisocial personality disorder, check these boxes.
Can I ask a quick question? I know you asked to wait towards the end.
So can you save it to the end, please?
Okay, okay.
Thank you. If you think you might forget it, you can go ahead and type it down in the chat. That way you don't lose track of it. So when it comes to identifying someone who is toxic or is a sociopath or a psychopath or has antisocial personality disorder, or who has traits that you want to kind of think about, consider, or contemplate for yourself, that superficial charm. So these dudes who disarm you using beautiful speech, these people who will be very interested in you early on will likely be asking a lot of questions of you. So if they're rapid firing questions about you, they appear very interested. When you're answering them, they might be shaking their head a lot to try to get you to, give out more information. However, the red flag is you'll start to see how not charming they are when they leak out emotionless or insensitivities in their speech and follow up with shit like, I'm only kidding. So they'll say something awful, bad, that pushes your buttons. It'll be horribly offensive. And they won't say, I'm sorry, or I apologize for any offense. They'll say, only kidding. They will insist that, or he will insist that he either didn't do anything actually wrong, right? So jokes aren't wrong, they're jokes. Or that something else is responsible for how you feel about what he did. So it's not that he made a joke about your dead grandma. Jokes are fine, or you have some other attachment that is giving you hurt feelings about your dead grandma. It's not that he did or said anything insensitive. Additionally, counter to that superficial charm, he will usually reply to perceived slights with unnecessary hostility. So you might say something to him about something that he's wearing. He might take it the wrong way and respond back in an ungodly, hostile way and really kind of break you down in a way that's disproportionate to what the issue even called for, even if you were being offensive. And then one of the other things to take a look at or think about or to pay attention to is if they contradict themselves in the same sentence. So if you ask him, hey, did you go out with the boys last Friday? He might go, nah, I didn't. And you go, oh, that's weird because I saw a picture of you out with some of the folks on the bar wall. I was like, actually I did. I went out for a few minutes and left and went back home. I didn't even really consider going out. Contradicted himself real quick. Take a look at that. Those are red flags that you don't want to ignore. In the vocal cues, so, excuse me, here in the speech patterns, we talk about what they say and how they say it. Here we're talking about like their tones. So is their voice going up high, down low, and what does it mean for how they're trying to manipulate you? So people who have antisocial personality disorder, they lack empathy, period. The ability to relate to other people as people is not there. They can only relate to other human beings as objects. And that comes out in their tone. It's flat and monotonous and uninterested. However, when they want to berate others, you can start to pick up on a little whine when they're discussing those problems. And their voice gets a little whiny and it takes on that kind of quality. And when they're working on you and trying to manipulate you, their vocal traits will quicken. They'll start to talk faster, their pitch will go up, and it'll seem like they're a little bit more interested, where at regular, they seem uninterested. And that's their way of reinforcing you, because you want that excitement from them, because that charm is working on you. They're charming, but they seem uninterested. So you do something, and if it's something that they can benefit them, they respond to you by picking up the vocal cues, by putting on some charm in the voice, raising the pitch, speaking a little bit faster, and feigning interest in what you are talking about. As far as that body language is concerned, all of it is designed to get your attention. So at baseline, it's stiff and rigid when it's not working on you. They might hold themselves. They might stand real stiff. When you see them walking, they might not have too much of a gait. And in general, you're not seeing much expression about anything in their bodies, and that's at baseline. When they speak about something negative, you might notice that they shake their head yes, as an inconsistency in body language and character. And when they're speaking about something positive, you might see them shake their head no. So isn't it such a blessing the way we got that ride today? That shit really pisses me the fuck off, and I can't stand it. So those are inconsistencies with the emotionality and the body language. So negative speak, shake yes. Inconsistent. Positive speech, shake no. Inconsistent. Red flag. When they are really trying to sell it on you, they will use big, over-the-top, inappropriate gestures. All of a sudden, they'll become super animated, and you're looking at their charming, cute, little manipulative ass, and if they got you because maybe like you're starting to smile and shake your head yes at them. And that will be something that you will do to let them know that you are fascinated, and they can continue to try to work on you. Their facial expressions. So because they can only relate to you as an object and not a person, they will struggle with eye contact. If he doesn't think he can get anything from you, he won't make eye contact with you at baseline. So your conversations with him will be like you are looking at him and he will be looking forward. As if like if you've ever had a conversation with someone who's driving a car, like they don't really look at you that much. However, in this case, they won't look at you. Their voice will be monotonous. However, when you say something that is connected to something that they want or a need that they want to get met, they perk up, they make eye contact, and they will lock eyes and hold gazes unblinkingly when they're lying to you and actively trying to manipulate you. They will lack animation and appropriate emotional responses in their face. So if you consider the way that authentic people smile at children or small animals, well, people with antisocial personality disorder, they will register a smile, but you can see it in their eyes, the way the eyes don't squint up, the way they don't smile with their eyes. You can tell that it's not an authentic smile. And remember, as children, these people are oftentimes very mean to small, cute little animals. So that smile with the eyes, authenticity, it's not there. It's emotionless, it's hollow. And the other thing is crying without any physical tears and wiping tears away anyway. So if you see someone, a dude, and you're having a very important conversation with him, he's being held accountable, and the conversation switches from the things that he's done that's inappropriate to the things that have happened to him that, you know, made him this way. And he starts to make the crying face and and the weeping and stuff. And you go and you see the wiping of the tears, but there's actually no tears there. You getting played, you being worked on. And so that's an example of another facial expression that a sociopath or a psychopath, a tool that they will use to kind of work you in or change the emotional environment to one that they have the upper hand. So spiritual techniques for protecting yourself. Of course, there's the shielding. So surrounding yourself with the bright light and the energetic light of your higher power. There's a bee. All right, surrounding yourself with the light of God, surrounding yourself with the light of God is protecting yourself with the shield of your ancestors is a great way to start to set your intentions to not let any of that fuckery in your life. You can program your shields to deflect or repel certain energies. And you can also do the invocations of your guardians and invocations of your wards. And this is for your body and for your home and for your property. So consider some of the things that your ancestors or your spirit guides or guardians have gone through and how the lessons they've learned can help you program your prayers and your goals and your way of being to help you keep certain energies away. And think about the ways that you can utilize elemental guardians to help you. So earth and the power to keep away unstable or unintegrated people, and air giving you the power to keep away people who think a certain way, and fire to give you the power to keep away people who act a certain way, and water to give you the power to keep away people who feel a certain way, encoding that elemental energy into your prayers and into the way that you protect yourself from harmful people. Other techniques that you can use include a body scan. So taking an account for your body from your toes all the way up to the top of your head and getting a feel for what you're like at baseline will help you understand when your intuition is firing, when your limbic system is firing, when you're around a toxic person, and you're like, well, when I'm in a great environment, my body feels like this, but when I'm around you, my body feels like that. That is a warning sign that you can choose to use to help you inform your decision making. Then, of course, also externally, there's divination. So you can use your tarot, your runes, and your scrying skills to help you get a glimpse on the character, the behaviors, and the intentions from the people who enter your life. So these are the references that I've been using. So right here, the Toxic Men, 10 Ways to Identify, Deal with, and Heal from the Men Who Make Your Life Miserable. And then, of course, I did continue to reference the work from last year's summit, Stop Domestic Violence, Innovative Skills, Techniques, and Options and Plans for Better Relationships. And of course, I also referenced the 5th edition to the American Psychiatric Association's DSM. So that is the Deconstructing Toxic Men. We are open for questions now if there's anything that anyone wants to ask. This is going to be on the Blue Door website. This is something that I definitely want to write down. Will you still have this posted where it is accessible later? Yes, it's going to be this entire presentation right here. The opening remarks and the Deconstructing Toxic Men is going to be on bluedoorevents.weebly.com. So you can revisit this presentation. And then this presentation is also going to be on my YouTube channel. So you can like and subscribe to that. You can, watch that and get this information. So good question. Any other questions about toxic men, deconstructing antisocial personality disorder, or anything that I started talking about so far? Man, you can unmute yourself and put your voice on if you want to.
Okay. All right. Not really a question, but pretty much a statement. It really looks like you have done your homework with this stuff. You did a really great job on, presenting the correct information. And, these are things that I have, all of it, I've seen all of my life, but the way it is worded definitely helps to understand it that much better. Was definitely a very educational presentation that you presented for yourself. And I'm not just saying that as your mother, I'm saying that as you, as being, yes, you really did a wonderful job with this presentation. And thank you for sharing it with us as women.
Absolutely, thank you. And thank you for the feedback. I'm glad the way that I worded it and chose to present it was helpful. One of the things that I do want to do is make sure that a variety of different people do have access to the information, which does mean that we can't always use clinical or professional jargon. Like, we do have to talk about the real fucking facts and the real shit that these men do when they're out in the real world. Because a clinician might not be able to take a step out into the environment, take a look at a relationship, in the therapy room and be like, oh, this is like an example of how this clinical principle presents in the real world, right? And especially with people as charming as sociopaths and psychopaths, there's a way to explain these things away and make it seem like it's normal, or to gaslight you into making you think it's your fault. So we have to use a variety of language. We have to use a variety of different examples. And we have to clarify the context. If this is happening in order to dominate you when you don't want to be dominated, if this is happening to get power and control over you, if this is being done to isolate you or to remove you from a version of your most successful self, it's definitely toxic. And you don't have to make excuses for it. Any man who is watching this and takes trouble with what I'm saying, we can absolutely have a conversation and discuss the context. However, men with grace, men with character, they don't have a problem with what I said today.
Powerful.
There are no more questions. I will go ahead and shut this down for now. The next program will be Lilith Dorsey, and she'll be presenting on the power of Ogun's machete. So catch us back here at that time. And until then, blessed be.
What time is that?